Far beyond the familiar borders of the known galaxy, the Zorath collective moved silently through the endless void of stars. Their ships, sleek and glimmering like polished gems, patrolled territories that spanned thousands of light years. For centuries, the Zorath had been the undisputed rulers of their domain, explorers and guardians of countless systems. They were confident, skilled, and certain that nothing new could challenge their dominance. On this seemingly ordinary day aboard the flagship GalacticPrime, a faint anomaly appeared on the scanners. The crew, highly trained and meticulous, immediately noticed the unusual reading. The signal was unregistered and originated from a part of space long thought empty. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat in the darkness, almost imperceptible but undeniably alive. Admiral Sarath, the commanding officer of the GalacticPrime, studied the readouts carefully. He was an experienced leader, known for his sharp mind and calm demeanor. "Bring it up on the main screen," he ordered, his voice steady. The crew obeyed, hands moving quickly over controls that shimmered under the dim lights of the command deck. The image on the screen revealed something impossible. It was a massive object drifting silently through the void. Its structure was unlike anything in the Zorath archives. It was not a natural formation like an asteroid, nor was it a craft from any known alien civilization. Its hull was metallic, enormous, and elegant, shaped in a way that seemed almost organic. Yet there were signs that it had been built deliberately, with purpose and precision. "Scan it thoroughly," Admiral Sarath commanded. "Every sensor, every spectrum. I want to know what it is." The Zorath scientists and engineers worked rapidly. Their devices emitted quiet hums and clicks as they tried to gather data, but every scan seemed to bounce back strangely, like the object was responding instead of the other way around. The readings were inconsistent, fluctuating in ways that made no sense. It was as if the object had a consciousness, an intelligence that refused to be probed. Lieutenant Carroll, the chief science officer, frowned as he studied the results. "Admiral, these readings are unusual. The object is shielding itself in a way that our sensors cannot penetrate fully. It emits faint energy pulses, but we cannot determine their origin or purpose." Admiral Sarath leaned closer to the screen, eyes narrowing. Could it be a new species of life form? Perhaps an ancient construct long forgotten? Carroll shook his head. "No record in any of our archives matches this design. And the energy patterns, they do not resemble any natural phenomena. This is artificial, and yet it is unlike anything we have ever seen." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Silence filled the bridge, broken only by the soft whirring of machines and the occasional beep of a sensor. For the first time in years, the officers felt a flicker of uncertainty, a sensation that something extraordinary was about to happen. "Prepare a closer approach," Admiral Sarath ordered. "We will get a better view, but maintain caution. Do not underestimate this object." As the GalacticPrime moved forward, the mysterious vessel seemed to react. Its surface shimmered faintly, as though sensing the presence of the alien ship. The Zorath crew noted small, almost imperceptible movements along its hull, like a deep-breathing organism stirring from a long sleep. Then a strange phenomenon occurred. On the main screen, a series of symbols flashed briefly before vanishing. The shapes were angular, complex, and unlike any writing the Zorath had encountered. Carroll quickly tried to capture the sequence, but the moment their instruments focused, the symbols disappeared. "It's communicating," Carroll whispered, almost to himself. "But I cannot interpret it. It is not in any known language or code." Admiral Sarath's brow furrowed. "Then we must proceed carefully. Attempt to establish contact. Open a standard communication channel." The communication officer, a young but skilled Zorath named Terran, initiated the protocol. A calm voice came through the system, monotone and measured, but it was not speaking the alien language. Instead, the message was written across their screens in large, bold letters that seemed almost impossible to read at first. "UNS Valkyrie, Terran Fleet Command." A murmur ran through the bridge. The words were strange, foreign, and yet somehow unmistakable. "Terran?" Lieutenant Carroll asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. "Humans, that's impossible. They should be extinct." Admiral Sarath's gaze was sharp. "It appears we have encountered a human vessel, but how? And why is it here so far from known Terran space?" The GalacticPrime held its position, scanning the human ship carefully. It was enormous, larger than any Zorath cruiser, yet sleek and efficient in design. Its hull was covered with strange markings and faint lights pulsed rhythmically along its surface, almost as if it were breathing. The energy readings were inconsistent, sometimes vanishing completely, then reappearing in bursts of blue and silver. "Admiral," Carol said, pointing at the screen. "It's powering up. I can detect faint energy surges in its propulsion systems, but there are no signatures of weapons or active systems. It's alive in a sense." A wave of unease swept across the bridge. The Zorath had faced countless challenges in their centuries of exploration, but nothing like this. A silent, immense warship that appeared abandoned yet responsive, alien yet unmistakably human. It was a paradox and one that demanded caution. Admiral Sarath studied the ship carefully. "Open a dialogue," he instructed. "Attempt a standard greeting. Identify ourselves as explorers. Let us see if it acknowledges us peacefully." Terran initiated the communication. "This is Admiral Sarath of the Zorath Collective. We come in peace. Identify yourself." For several minutes, nothing happened. The crew held their breath, the tension palpable. Then the Valkyrie responded, but not with words. Instead, a series of energy pulses emitted from its hull, creating a mesmerizing display of blue light. The pulses were rhythmic, almost musical, like a heartbeat or a signal calling out to something unseen. Carol adjusted the sensors, trying to decode the pattern. It's not a threat," he said slowly. "I think it's testing us, observing, measuring our response." Admiral Sarath nodded, a sense of awe filling him. "Then we must show caution and respect. This is a species or a machine unlike anything we have ever encountered. Treat it with care." As the Velar Prime hovered near the Valkyrie, the human ship's sensors seemed to scan them in return. Every time the Zorath adjusted their instruments, the Valkyrie responded with subtle pulses, almost like a mirror. The alien crew could feel the silent intelligence behind the ship, a presence that was patient, deliberate, and immensely powerful. Hours passed as the two ships remained in a tense standoff. The Valkyrie did not attack, did not advance, and did not retreat. It simply observed. And in that observation, the Zorath realized something extraordinary. Humanity, though believed extinct or primitive, had left behind a legacy far beyond their understanding. Finally, the human vessel emitted a new message, written clearly in the universal galactic protocol: "Identify." The simplicity of the command was chilling. It carried authority, confidence, and an unspoken warning. The Zorath crew understood immediately that this was not a ship to be underestimated. Admiral Sarath straightened in his chair. "Prepare a full report," he ordered. "We will record everything. Nothing is to be touched or interfered with. We observe, we learn, and we proceed with caution." As the alien fleet gathered around the Valkyrie, the stars seemed to grow colder, the darkness deeper. Something about the human ship radiated a quiet power, a strength born not of violence but of survival, endurance, and unyielding purpose. The Zorath had come seeking answers, but in that moment, they realized they might have found something far greater, the ghost of humanity still alive in the stars, waiting silently for the galaxy to notice. And somewhere deep within the hull of the Valkyrie, sensors flickered faintly as if acknowledging their attention. The ship did not move. It did not speak, but it waited, patient, watchful, silent. The first encounter had begun, and the universe would never be the same again. The Velar Prime hovered silently in the dark expanse of space, its sensors trained on the mysterious human ship, the Valkyrie. The crew could not shake the feeling that they were being studied in return. Every time they adjusted their instruments, faint energy pulses shimmered across the human vessel's hull. It was as if the ship itself was alive, aware and conscious of their presence. Lieutenant Corral studied the readouts on his console, trying to understand the signals. "Admiral," he said, his voice low, "the Valkyrie is unusual. Its systems are unlike anything in the Zorath archives. Its energy pulses do not match any propulsion, life support, or weapon patterns we know. I think it is observing us, learning from us." Admiral Sarath's eyes narrowed. "So it is aware. Not hostile yet, but aware. That makes it dangerous, if provoked." He leaned back in his chair, studying the ghostly silhouette of the human ship on the main screen. "We must approach this carefully. One wrong move, and we could trigger a response we are not ready for. The bridge was tense. For hours, the VeilorPrime and the Valkyrie stared at each other, like two predators sizing each other up, though neither made an aggressive move. The silence was almost physical, pressing against the walls of the command deck. Finally, Terran, the communications officer, spoke. "Admiral, I am attempting a direct scan of their hull. Perhaps we can learn more about its structure and systems." Carol shook his head. "Be careful. Every probe we've sent so far has either failed or disappeared. This ship seems to reject interference. It may be protecting itself, or testing us." Despite the warnings, curiosity got the better of them. A small remote drone was launched from the VeilorPrime, its sensors focused on the Valkyrie's hull. The crew watched as it approached, its lights reflecting on the human ship's polished surface. But moments later, the drone vanished. No signal, no explosion, nothing. It had simply disappeared from the sensors. A murmur ran across the bridge. Carol's eyes widened. It absorbed the drone, or perhaps moved it to another dimension. I don't understand how it could do that. Admiral Sarath took a deep breath. "Recall all drones. No more direct interference. If it wants to communicate, it will do so on its own terms." For the next few hours, the two ships remained in tense observation. The Valkyrie did not move closer, but subtle energy fluctuations ran across its surface like ripples on water. The crew of the VeilorPrime felt a growing sense of unease. They had faced unknown species before, but this was different. This was not just a ship, it was a presence, and it felt almost intelligent. Then a sudden shift occurred. On the main screen, small streaks of light appeared along the human vessel, moving in patterns that resembled a form of writing. Carol's jaw tightened as he studied the sequences. These are symbols of some kind, a message perhaps, but I cannot interpret them. They do not match any code in our systems. Terran added, "It's like it's testing us, Admiral. Every time we try to read it, the patterns change, almost as if they know what we are doing." Admiral Sarath's expression was unreadable. "Then we observe. We do not interfere. We wait. That is all we can do." Hours passed like this, a silent dance across the void. The Zorath crew began to feel a strange mix of fear and awe. They had never encountered technology that seemed conscious. It was like staring at a being that was both machine and life form, both observer and guardian. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the human ship emitted a new signal. This time a sound transmitted through the space around them, faint and melodic. The tone was low, resonant, and oddly comforting, yet it carried authority. Carol adjusted the sensors to interpret the signal. Slowly, the translation came through. "Identify yourselves." The words were simple, direct, and filled with calm command. But their effect was immediate. The crew of the VeilorPrime felt a ripple of tension through the bridge. The human ship had demanded a response, and it expected it to be accurate, immediate, and truthful. Admiral Sarath straightened. "This is Admiral Sarath of the Zorath Collective. We are explorers, not intruders. We seek knowledge, not conflict. We mean no harm." The Valkyrie did not respond immediately. For a moment, silence returned, but it was different this time. The energy pulses across the hull seemed to settle, almost as if the ship was considering the reply. Slowly, a series of blue lights glowed along its surface in a pattern that resembled a nod, deliberate and controlled. Lieutenant Carroll whispered, It acknowledges us. It understands us. The Valkyrie is alive in ways we cannot fully comprehend." The bridge was quiet again, the crew mesmerized by the silent, glowing ship before them. Then a new reading appeared on the sensors. Small energy signatures, faint and distant, moving slowly across the void behind the Valkyrie. Admiral Sarath's eyes narrowed. "Scan those readings. What are they?" Carol's fingers flew over the console. They appear to be ships. Massive, dormant, larger than anything in our fleet. I cannot detect crews, weapons, or activity. It's as if they are sleeping. A sense of awe and fear filled the bridge. The Valkyrie was not alone. It was part of a fleet, ancient, powerful, and hidden in the shadows of the galaxy. The implications were staggering. Admiral Sarath took a deep breath. Prepare a detailed report. Document everything. These ships, and they are beyond our understanding. We must not interfere. Our role is observation, nothing more. Hours turned into cycles, and the Valor Prime continued to study the human ship and the faint fleet behind it. The crew slowly began to understand that humanity, a species long thought extinct or primitive, had created guardians unlike any known technology. These were not just ships, they were sentinels, designed to endure, to wait, and to protect. Terran spoke quietly, almost to herself. It's incredible. They built these ships to last, to survive everything, even extinction. And here they are, still active, still watching the stars. Admiral Sarath nodded slowly. Yes, humanity is unlike any species we have encountered, not because of power or conquest, but because of foresight, resilience, and determination. They endure in ways we can barely imagine. As night passed across the distant stars, the human ship remained silent, but alert. Its glow pulsed gently, like the heartbeat of a being resting but aware. The Zorath scientists recorded every movement, every fluctuation, every subtle change in energy patterns. They knew they were witnessing history, a first contact that would be remembered for centuries. Yet for all their observation, one question remained unanswered. Why was the Valkyrie here? Why had it appeared so far from known human space? And what would happen if it fully awakened? Carol turned to the Admiral. Admiral, I fear this is only the beginning. The moment we saw the first signs of the fleet, I felt a presence. Something powerful, something patient, but unmistakably aware. Humanity has left a mark across the stars, and we are only seeing the surface of it. Admiral Sarath looked at the glowing silhouette of the human ship, its energy patterns rippling like silent waves in the void. We will continue to observe, Lieutenant, but we must respect it. This ship, this fleet, they are guardians, not enemies. But if provoked, I believe, they would show us a side of humanity that few have ever seen. The crew watched as the Valkyrie slowly rotated, almost casually, as if examining the Zorath ship. It emitted no warning, no threat, only quiet awareness. It was a ghost in the stars, a sentinel of a species long thought gone. And in that silence, the crew of the Valor Prime realized the truth. They were witnessing humanity's enduring spirit, a legacy that spanned the stars, unseen, unbroken, and quietly formidable. The night of observation stretched on, and the stars around them seemed to grow deeper, darker, and more infinite. The Valkyrie remained a silent, enigmatic presence, a riddle wrapped in light and steel, and the Zorath crew, for the first time in their long history, felt not pride, but humility. They were not the most advanced nor the most enduring. They were merely observers gazing upon a species whose story had not ended, whose strength was not measured in weapons or conquest, but in patience, endurance, and an unwavering presence among the stars. The first encounter was over for now, but the memory of that glowing, silent warship would haunt the Zorath forever. Humanity was no longer just a story from the past. It was here, watching, waiting, and proving that even across the vast darkness of space, its spirit endured. The silence of space stretched endlessly, yet aboard the Valor Prime every officer felt it as a living presence. The Valkyrie drifted not far from their formation, its massive hull gleaming faintly against the backdrop of distant stars. Its energy pulses were steady, rhythmic like a heartbeat. They were not merely observing, they were being observed. Lieutenant Carroll continued to monitor the ship's signals. The patterns of light and energy were growing more complex, almost musical, and the human vessel seemed to be reacting to the Valor Prime's every adjustment. Carroll leaned closer to the console, trying to decode the subtle fluctuations. Admiral, it's sending us another signal. This one, it's structured differently. There is intelligence here. Deliberate intelligence. It's trying to communicate. Admiral Sarath's gaze remained fixed on the glowing silhouette of the human ship. Very well, he said. Prepare a full translation attempt. We respond as clearly and respectfully as possible. Let it know we come in peace. Taryn, the communications officer, worked quickly. Her hands moved over the console, activating arrays designed to interpret unknown transmissions. The pulse patterns converted into a rough but understandable message. This is the United Nations ship Valkyrie. You have entered Terran space. Identify yourself or be escorted out. The words were simple yet authoritative. The calm, direct tone carried an undeniable sense of power. The Zorath crew exchanged stunned glances. 50,000 light-years from known human space, here was a Terran warship awake, commanding respect across the galaxy. Admiral Sarath spoke first, his voice measured. This is Admiral Sarath of the Zorath Collective. We are explorers. We come in peace. We mean no harm. We are curious, seeking knowledge and understanding. For a moment there was silence. The hum of the Valar Prime systems filled the bridge, almost deafening against the quiet of space. Then the Valkyrie responded again, its message appearing clearly on the universal translation screen. Exploration acknowledged. Your technology is advanced. Your actions are not hostile. Proceed with caution. Do not wake the fleet. A collective shiver passed through the crew. The fleet? Whispered Lieutenant Carroll. There is more than one ship? Admiral Sarath did not answer immediately. Instead, he instructed all sensor officers to focus behind the Valkyrie. Slowly, subtle energy signatures appeared on the long-range sensors. Large, dormant ships, nearly invisible against the dark of space, were positioned in a formation that stretched across multiple systems. Their size was staggering, their surfaces smooth and reflective, faint blue lights pulsing intermittently. Carroll's breath caught. They are enormous, larger than any of our cruisers and completely inactive. No life signs, no weapons active. It's like they're sleeping. Admiral Sarath's expression was thoughtful, almost reverent. This is humanity's silent fleet. Not extinct, not gone. They are waiting, watching, protecting something. Perhaps the galaxy itself. The bridge officers murmured in awe. For centuries, the Zorath had assumed themselves the most enduring, most advanced species in this sector. And yet, here was proof that a race thought long extinct had built guardians capable of lasting millennia, designed to survive, observe, and act if necessary. Terran spoke hesitantly. Admiral, why? Why would humans create such a fleet? And leave it dormant like this? Admiral Sarath shook his head. We may never fully understand their reasoning. But the mere presence of these ships proves one thing. Humanity was never ordinary. They were patient, wise, and prepared for the long term. Perhaps they anticipated threats no one else could imagine. For hours, the Valar Prime studied the fleet. Each ship remained dormant, yet the combined presence radiated power. It was impossible to approach them closely without triggering some unknown response. The humans had designed these vessels not for aggression, but for endurance, for observation, and for protection. Then, another transmission from the Valkyrie appeared. This time it was longer, with more nuance. Humanity endures. We sleep beneath the stars, waiting for the day we are needed again. Those who disturb our rest must prove their peace. Actions speak louder than words. Observe, act wisely, and leave us undisturbed. The Zorath officers absorbed the message with a mixture of fear and respect. The Valkyrie was not threatening. They had made that clear. But there was undeniable authority in every word. This was a civilization that had faced extinction, survived, and still commanded the stars even in dormancy. Carroll's voice was barely audible. They aren't just machines. These ships, they are the essence of humanity itself, patient, powerful, and unwavering. They endure even when the species sleeps. Admiral Sarath nodded slowly. Yes, and now we see why the galaxy must respect them. We are guests in their space, observed and judged. And we have passed their first test simply by showing curiosity without aggression. The Zorath fleet maintained a careful distance, scanning the dormant ships. They discovered subtle patterns in the hulls, engraved symbols, delicate structures designed to withstand centuries of time, and energy conduits that pulsed with quiet life. These were not mere vessels. They were monuments to a species' enduring will. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Sarath felt humility. He had commanded fleets, discovered new worlds, and faced unknown species. But nothing had compared to this moment. Humanity, though absent from the galaxy for thousands of cycles, had left a legacy that could not be ignored. Terran adjusted the sensors to study the Valkyrie more closely. "Admiral, I think it's trying to teach us something. Each energy pulse, each message, it's as if it wants us to understand humanity, not fear it." Sarath's eyes softened slightly. Perhaps it is reminding us of the responsibility of encountering a species like this. We have been given a glimpse of what humanity was and may still be. We must act with care, curiosity, and respect. Hours passed as the Zoreth continued their observations. The human fleet remained dormant, yet the mere presence of the Valkyrie radiated quiet authority. The messages, though brief and simple, conveyed wisdom, patience, and vigilance. Humanity had created more than ships. They had created a testament to endurance and foresight, a reminder that survival was about more than technology or strength. As the Valar Prime prepared to withdraw for further study, another transmission arrived. This one was personal, almost conversational. "Your species is curious. That is good. Learn, observe, and respect the stars. Not all who watch are inactive. Some awaken only when truly needed. Be mindful of your actions." Admiral Sarath considered the words carefully. "It is a lesson," he murmured. "Not just a warning. A lesson about patience, foresight, and responsibility. Humanity has left its mark on the galaxy, not through conquest, but through endurance and wisdom." Carol nodded, eyes fixed on the glowing silhouette of the Valkyrie. "We have seen only a fraction of their power. But even this glimpse, it changes everything. The galaxy is not ours alone, and we are not the most enduring species here." The Valar Prime slowly began to move away, leaving the Valkyrie behind, yet the sense of being watched remained. Even as they withdrew, faint energy pulses followed them, subtle and deliberate, like a teacher observing a student leaving the classroom. As the stars stretched endlessly around them, the crew reflected on what they had seen. Humanity was not extinct. Humanity had not failed. Humanity had endured, and in its endurance it had created guardians that watched silently from the void. Ships that carried not only technology, but the essence of a species' spirit, capable of waiting centuries for the right moment to awaken. Admiral Sarath turned to his officers. "We have witnessed history. We have seen the spirit of humanity, preserved in these ships. Remember this moment. Record it, study it, and never underestimate the potential of a species that endures across time and space." Terran smiled faintly, awe evident in her eyes. "It is beautiful, Admiral. Even in silence they teach. Even in dormancy they inspire. Humanity truly is remarkable." The Valkyrie slowly faded into the distance, blending with the stars. Its glow dimmed but never disappeared entirely, a constant reminder that somewhere humanity still watched. Somewhere it still waited, and somewhere, in the vast darkness of space, the galaxy had been shown a force that was patient, enduring, and beyond imagination. The first direct communication had ended, but the lessons lingered. Humanity's message was clear. They had survived, they had endured, and they were prepared. The galaxy could continue its explorations, but it must always respect the legacy of a species that had proven the strength of spirit over centuries. And as the Valar Prime charted a course back to report their findings, every officer understood something profound. The encounter with the Valkyrie was not just first contact. It was a glimpse of what it truly meant to endure, to be patient, and to leave a mark on the stars that time could never erase. Humanity had spoken. And the galaxy was listening. The Valar Prime had returned to a safe distance, leaving the Valkyrie to its quiet vigilance. Yet the atmosphere on the bridge was far from calm. The Zorath officers could not shake the feeling that they had glimpsed something far beyond their understanding. Humanity, once thought extinct or primitive, had left a presence in the galaxy that was patient, powerful, and impossible to ignore. Admiral Sarath sat in his command chair, staring at the dim energy signature of the human ship fading into the distance. "We must understand," he said softly. "We cannot report these findings as mere curiosity. Humanity, it is far greater than we imagined." Lieutenant Carroll nodded, still processing the events. "Admiral, I've been reviewing ancient records and cross-referencing Terran history. There are scattered accounts of human civilizations in other parts of the galaxy, but all assumed extinct. Yet the design of the Valkyrie, its endurance, its technology, it does not match any records we have of their capabilities. It is advanced beyond anything we knew humans could create. Terran added, "It is not just technology. These ships, they are built to survive, to wait, to observe. Whoever built them thought in terms of centuries, not decades. That is rare among any species. It is almost wise." Admiral Sarath leaned forward, his hands clasped. "Then perhaps it is time we study the history we thought we knew. Humanity did not vanish by accident. They were not weak. They endured and prepared, and now their legacy remains hidden, waiting beneath the stars." The Zorath scientists began their research in earnest, combing through every record, every historical account, and every ancient artifact associated with humanity. Slowly, a picture began to emerge, a story older than most Zorath records, of a species that had faced extinction yet refused to surrender. Thousands of cycles ago, human civilizations had been threatened by a vast and unknown enemy. Their technology, while primitive compared to the fleets of today, had allowed them to survive against overwhelming odds. But humans did not simply fight for survival, they built for the future. The Valkyrie and its sister ships were constructed as the ultimate guardians, designed to endure millennia and protect the galaxy from dangers no one else could anticipate. Carol's voice broke the silence. "Admiral, it's incredible. These ships were designed to wait for generations. They were not meant to fight immediately, not unless the need was truly great. They are sentinels, guardians of life and order, preserved in case the galaxy ever required their intervention." Admiral Sarath nodded gravely. "That explains why the Valkyrie did not attack. It did not need to. Its purpose is not aggression. It is patience, vigilance, and protection, and we have stumbled into its observation." Terran added thoughtfully, "The fleet behind the Valkyrie, they are all dormant, sleeping in the void, waiting. They are a legacy of humanity's foresight. Even now they maintain power, energy, and awareness. Humanity has endured not through conquest but through preparation and patience." As they studied further, the Zorath realized something that shocked even their most seasoned historians. The human fleet was vast, spanning multiple systems, each ship capable of self-repair and long-term survival. They were silent, almost invisible, and yet their presence was unmistakable. The humans had created a network of guardians that could awaken at the slightest signal or threat, yet they remained dormant until truly needed. Carol's eyes widened. "They have been watching the galaxy all this time, and we, our presence, our movements, are only now being observed. We are not intruders, we are students of their patience." Admiral Sarath's expression was solemn. "And we have passed the first test. We approached without aggression. We observed with caution. Humanity saw us and chose to acknowledge us rather than attack. That is rare, that is extraordinary." Hours passed as the crew of the Valor Prime absorbed the weight of this revelation. Humanity had survived against all odds, endured centuries, and created a fleet that could outlast even the oldest civilizations. And now a single ship, the Valkyrie, had awakened to observe the galaxy and ensure that balance remained intact. Terran broke the silence. "Admiral, the message they sent, observe, act wisely, and leave us undisturbed. It is more than a warning. It is a lesson. Humanity has not only survived but learned how to endure wisely. They teach us even without words." Admiral Sarath nodded slowly. "We have much to learn. This is not a story of war or conquest. It is a story of foresight, resilience, and the quiet strength of a species that refuses to be forgotten. Humanity's legacy is alive, hidden in the stars, and it is far greater than we could have imagined." The bridge crew began discussing their next steps carefully. They needed to study the Valkyrie and its fleet further, but without interference. Every probe, every sensor sweep had to be carefully measured. Humanity had designed these ships for observation, and the Zorath were learning that the consequences of intrusion could be serious, not violent, but absolute. Carol spoke again. "Admiral, I think we underestimated humans. Their endurance, their foresight. It is almost like they are a force of nature, silent but unstoppable. They do not need to conquer because they prepare. They endure. That is their power." Sarath looked out into the darkness, the stars reflecting in his eyes. "Indeed, And now the galaxy knows that humanity's legacy is still here. Even as we speak, the fleet sleeps, waiting for the day it may be needed again. And when that day comes, it will not be for war alone, it will be to protect, to endure, and to ensure that life continues. For the first time in centuries, the crew of the Velar Prime felt small, not helpless but humbled. They had faced many unknown civilizations, but none had displayed the quiet, patient strength of humanity. The Valkyrie had not attacked. It had not threatened. It had simply observed, tested, and taught. As the hours turned into cycles, the Zorath crew continued to study the energy signatures of the dormant fleet. They observed the subtle patterns of maintenance, the rhythmic pulsing of energy cores, and the careful preservation of each vessel. These ships were more than machines, they were living monuments to a species' enduring spirit, Terran whispered almost reverently. Even in dormancy, they are alive. They are guardians, they are humanity, Admiral Surath nodded slowly. Yes, and we must honor that. We must report our findings accurately. Humanity is not extinct. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is patient, prepared, and enduring. And that is a truth that the galaxy must recognize. The bridge fell silent as the stars stretched endlessly around them. The Valkyrie remained faintly visible on long-range sensors, a solitary beacon of a species that had survived beyond expectation. Its glow was steady, constant, and unwavering, a reminder that humanity endured even in the face of oblivion. Carol leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. Admiral, the lesson is clear. Humanity's strength is not in weapons or conquest. It is in patience, foresight, and the ability to endure across centuries. We have much to learn from them. Admiral Sarath's gaze remained fixed on the distant light of the Valkyrie. And we will learn. But first we observe, we respect, and we ensure that the galaxy remembers that humanity's legacy is alive, even if the species itself is hidden in the stars. The Zorath Collective had come seeking knowledge. They had found more than knowledge. They had found a story of endurance, of foresight, and of quiet power that spanned the galaxy. Humanity had survived when others might have perished, and in doing so, it had left a mark that no civilization could ignore. As the Velar Prime set course to return to the Zorath archives, the bridge crew remained in contemplative silence. The Valkyrie and its dormant fleet were no longer just a mystery. They were a lesson, a reminder that strength was measured not by aggression or speed, but by patience, preparation, and the ability to endure across time. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of known space, the Valkyrie continued to drift silently, observing, waiting, and ensuring that the galaxy remained a place where life could survive, endure, and thrive. Humanity's legacy had not ended. It had only begun to teach the stars the true meaning of endurance. The Zorath had learned something profound. To encounter humanity was to encounter patience, wisdom, and power that could outlast civilizations, and the galaxy would remember this lesson, long after the stars themselves had shifted. The Velar Prime moved steadily through the dark void, leaving the Valkyrie and its dormant fleet behind. Yet the feeling of being observed lingered across the bridge like a quiet hum. The Zorath officers could not shake the impression that, even in silence, humanity's presence remained a force to be reckoned with. Admiral Sarath remained seated, his hands clasped before him, staring into the endless stars. "We have seen only a glimpse," he said quietly. "And even this glimpse is more than enough to understand the power of patience, preparation, and endurance." Lieutenant Carroll looked at him, awe evident in his eyes. "It is humbling, Admiral. They built these ships to endure centuries, to watch over the galaxy. They are not conquerors. They are guardians, and yet their presence alone commands respect." Terran adjusted the sensor array, watching the distant, fading glow of the Valkyrie. "I keep thinking about their message. Observe, act wisely, and leave us undisturbed. They do not need to attack. They do not need to prove strength. Their strength is in endurance, in waiting, and being ready when needed." Admiral Sarath nodded slowly. "Yes. And now the question remains, what will the galaxy do with this knowledge? Most will not believe it. They will call it legend, superstition, or myth. But we have seen the truth. Humanity endures. Humanity watches. Humanity waits." The crew sat in silence, contemplating the scope of what they had discovered. The Zorath had spent centuries exploring the stars, encountering countless species and claiming dominion over vast regions of space. Yet none of their discoveries had carried the quiet, lasting authority of a species that had survived extinction and left guardians across the galaxy. Carol spoke again, softer this time. "Admiral, the Valkyrie is just one ship. The fleet behind it, sleeping silently across multiple systems. They could awaken at any moment. They are a force unlike any we have seen, not because they attack, but because they endure. They are a lesson in patience and preparation." Sarath's eyes reflected the distant starlight. "And it is a lesson we must take to heart. We are explorers, not conquerors. Our role is to learn, observe, and respect. Humanity has shown us what it means to endure, not to dominate. That is the true strength of a species." Hours passed as the VelarPrime continued its course back to Zorath space. Every officer aboard remained alert, yet thoughtful. The encounter with the Valkyrie had left them changed. The legends of old, stories of humans as fragile, short-lived, or extinct, were now replaced with knowledge of a species that had endured, adapted, and prepared beyond imagination. Terran spoke, almost to herself as she monitored the sensors. "Even in silence they inspire. Even when dormant they teach. Humanity, it is more than a species. It is a legacy." Admiral Sarath turned to her, his voice steady but reflective. "Yes, and we must ensure that this legacy is respected. Humanity has endured, but it is not an invincible force of destruction. Its power lies in wisdom, foresight, and preparation. We have been given a glimpse of that. We must not forget it," Carol added. "It makes me wonder what other species have left silent guardians waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Humanity may not be the only one, but they are the first we have encountered that shows such endurance and foresight." The Admiral remained silent for a moment, considering the vast implications. "Perhaps, but they are remarkable. They teach us something no archive, no library, no historian could. Endurance, patience, the ability to endure across centuries, across space, and remain prepared for the unknown. That is the essence of humanity." As the VelarPrime approached the borders of known Zorath space, the bridge crew reflected on the encounter. Humanity's message was clear, not through words alone, but through action and presence. The Valkyrie had not attacked, nor had it displayed hostility. Its quiet vigilance, the dormant fleet behind it, and the energy patterns all conveyed lessons about resilience, patience, and wisdom. Terran's voice broke the silence again. "Admiral, when the fleet awakens, it will not be for conquest. It will be to protect, to endure, and to ensure balance. That is unlike any force we have known. It is not aggression. It is guardianship," Sarath nodded. "Exactly. And that is the most remarkable thing. Humanity has survived not by destroying others, but by preparing for the long term, by enduring, by ensuring that when the galaxy needs them, they are ready. That is the truest form of power." The crew remained thoughtful as the VelarPrime entered the communication range of Zorath command stations. Admiral Sarath prepared the report carefully, knowing that many would dismiss it as fantasy. But he could not lie. The humans, their ships, their enduring presence, it was real. And it was a truth the galaxy would one day have to face. Hours later, the VelarPrime arrived at the central command of the Zorath Collective. Reports were filed, data was submitted, and analysis began. Yet in the hearts of those who had observed the Valkyrie, a sense of quiet reverence remained. Humanity was not just a species. It was a standard of endurance, a measure of patience, a reminder that strength was not always visible, and that true power often lay in preparation, wisdom, and the will to endure across generations. Carol and Terran stood near the Admiral's chair, reflecting on everything they had witnessed. "Admiral," Carol said, "we have glimpsed a truth that will change how we view the galaxy. Humanity is not extinct. They endure, and if the time comes, they will awaken not to destroy but to protect. That is the most extraordinary thing we could witness." Admiral Sarath smiled faintly, his gaze still fixed on the fading sensor readings of the Valkyrie. "Yes, and it is a reminder to us all. There are species in this galaxy that endure beyond expectation. We must respect them. We must learn from them. And we must remember that patience and preparation are as powerful as any weapon or fleet." As the days passed, the reports and analyses continued. The Zorath scholars began to study the data in depth, uncovering the methods of the human fleet, the energy patterns, and the structure of the Valkyrie. Slowly, a new understanding emerged, a new respect for a species that had endured against impossible odds, and a realization that humanity had left a legacy the galaxy could not ignore. Even as the Valar Prime prepared for its next mission, the crew carried the lessons they had learned. Humanity had proven that true power lay not in aggression, but in endurance. That survival was not only about strength, but about patience, foresight, and the will to remain vigilant over centuries. And somewhere, far away in the quiet darkness of space, the Valkyrie continued its watch. Its hull pulsed softly with energy, faint and steady, a heartbeat in the void. The fleet behind it remained dormant yet aware, ready to awaken when the galaxy required it. Humanity's presence was silent, unseen, yet undeniable. Admiral Sarath turned to his officers. "We have seen the spirit of humanity. Let it guide our actions. Let it remind us that endurance, preparation, and patience are more powerful than any fleet or weapon. And let it be known across the galaxy that humanity endures, not for conquest, not for glory, but for the preservation of life and the protection of the stars." Carol whispered, almost to himself, as he studied the distant lights on the sensors. "If they ever wake fully, the galaxy will understand what we have only glimpsed. A species that endures across centuries, across systems, and across the stars. Humanity's legacy is not just alive, it is eternal." Terran nodded, her eyes reflecting the faint glow of the distant Valkyrie. "We have witnessed a ghost, not a ghost of death, but a ghost of endurance. A reminder that some species do not vanish. They endure, they wait, and when the time comes, they rise not to conquer, but to protect." The Admiral smiled faintly. "And now the galaxy has been shown the truth. Humanity has left its mark, not through war or conquest, but through the quiet power of patience, preparation, and enduring presence. And we are fortunate to have seen it." As the Valar Prime left the sensor range, the stars stretched endlessly ahead, dark and mysterious. Yet among them, the faint glow of the Valkyrie remained, a silent testament to a species that had faced extinction and survived, a species that had built guardians not for themselves alone but for the galaxy, a species whose endurance would echo through the stars for generations to come. Humanity had left the galaxy long ago, some would say, yet its spirit lingered in the void, a quiet force of patience, wisdom, and vigilance. The stars themselves seemed to acknowledge it, shimmering faintly in response to the presence of something enduring, something remarkable, something eternal. The Zorath had learned the truth. To encounter humanity was to encounter a force of endurance unlike any other, a legacy written not in words or monuments but in the silent, watchful guardians that drifted across the endless darkness. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of known space, the Valkyrie continued its watch, ready for the day when the galaxy would need it once more. Humanity endured, humanity waited, and humanity's echo would be remembered forever.